The Central Pacific Railroad in California, the workday was over 10 hours long, 6 days per week. Additionally, Chinese workers were paid only $1 per day, while their Irish counterparts received $2 per day. Plus,
moment is immortalized in one of the most famous photos of the 19th century in the United States. People believe this photo deliberately omits Chinese. Despite their accomplishment, their sacrifice, their suffering.
Filipino nurses dominated the program. For about a decade, more than 10,000 Filipino nurses came to the U.S. to work. But the
Nationality Act of 1965 replaced the quotas by country of origin. It expanded immigration preference to people who had families in the U.S. or were considered highly skilled and educated workers.
This bill says simply that from this day forth, those wishing to immigrate to America shall be admitted on the basis of their skills and their close relationships to those already here.
Over 1 million refugees from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam have been resettled in the U.S. Many of them came to this country as very young children from the families of refugees.
Such as the Page Act, discriminated and barred Asian women. They've been stereotyped as a seductress, as subservient, as disease, and we can tie that directly.
Representations of Asian women at the end of the 19th century that are specifically written or imagined by white men. So I'm thinking specifically of Madame Chrysanthemum by Pierre Loti, Madame Butterfly by John Luther Long, The Play by David Belasco, which then turns, of course, into Madama Butterfly, which is the author by Puccini. The voice behind all of these narratives is a white male subjectivity.
The idea that an Asian woman is a possession to be had.
Law enforcement here investigating these shootings, and while it's not clear what led to these killings, it is impossible to ignore that these killings happened at Asian businesses like this one directly behind me in Atlanta, and that most of the victims were Asian women.
21 Atlanta mass shooting, 8 people were killed, 6 of them were Asian women. How can one associate a sexual addiction with Asian-run businesses, yet claim that their crime was not race-related?
Very Oriental. It's Asiatic.
I feel
the model minority.
The struggles they go through because they're expected to put on this outward appearance of being stable and being successful.
Use of people of color that they could then use against all the other people of color.
Never really been a sense of stability, and sometimes it's hard to invest yourself because in my mind I never knew, like, in 5 years, in a year, in a couple months, where will I be. So it's hard to plan ahead for life.
Bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate. Yeah, please, John.
A 91-year-old man pushed in Oakland's Chinatown.
Okay?
One of 3 attacks that day. 84-year-old Thai American Visha Ratanapakdi knocked over while out for a walk. He died a few days later from his injuries.
From COVID to China virus, I can call it the plague. I call it the China plague.
And at the end of the day, what we can do is we can spread awareness. We can have initiatives come together to try and restore some confidence and safety in our elders.
Breaking news, police say they've arrested the man who attacked 7 Asian women on the same night. And tonight we're learning new details about the suspect.
The police commissioner here telling me this is one of the worst acts of brutality he has seen in his entire career. Over 100 strikes. And this woman, police say she is the victim of a hate crime.
Enough is enough! Enough is enough!
I'm at the point where I can't take it anymore.
and turn to their communities for protection. Hundreds of women lined up in New York's Chinatown to receive pepper spray. Civilian patrols formed nationwide. And the elderly took up group classes in self-defense, learning how to fight back.
A video! What the fuck? Get back. Renegade. Yeah, that's right. I threw
Despite the stereotype of Asians as submissive and keeping their heads down, Asians have a long and storied history of civil disobedience in this country, which is often overlooked by the media. The media also plays a role in perpetuating stereotypes about Asians.
Really know about Asian American activism. It's becoming more visible to the mainstream in the most recent period. We have a very long and rich history of protest and active organizing against racism and for transformative change for liberatory communities.
Park's lawyers, they said that the 14th Amendment applied to people of Chinese descent as well as to people of all other backgrounds.
Wong Kim Ark was able to use the court system and bring this all the way to the Supreme Court. The fact that this happened back in the 1890s is truly amazing.
For example, in Hawaii in 1920, to protest the work conditions on the sugarcane plantations in Hawaii, the Japanese and Filipino sugarcane workers united and had a huge industry-wide strike.
Parents work together to ensure bilingual support for their children and equitable access to the curriculum for their children. You've got Grace Lee Boggs, who was a dedicated advocate and long-term advocate for African American communities.
Asian American and activism seems like oxymorons, which they are not.
Asian Americans, like Jews, are indeed a problem for the social justice brigade. How have bigoted white people allowed these minorities to do so well, even to the point of earning more on average than whites?
Because I remember growing up in this country and thinking about what we saw of ourselves. And I imagine being a younger version of myself and turning on the TV and seeing an Asian man standing on that stage and saying, this is totally normal. Asians run for president. That there is no limit to what we can accomplish in this country. That we are just as good and just as American as anyone else.
Well, don't think that our community is invisible anymore.
We're both simultaneously running campaigns at the same time. And I don't know what other opportunity I've had in Georgia as a lawmaker to stand side by side with an Asian woman who is also running for office, who is also serving at the same time. And I can't tell you what a difference it made last year when we were grappling with this horrific and violent shooting that took place right here in our state. We know that representation matters for many different reasons. We know that it matters because of cultural understanding, cultural nuances, language barriers. We know it's important to see people who look like us represent us.